What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So I will be making schedule predictions for every single Power 5 team in college football for this upcoming season, and I'll also do a subsequent conference standings video once I finish every team in a specific conference, just as a little synopsis of all of my schedule predictions for that conference. Those will be coming out later in the year, towards the start of the season as we get closer. We're almost there. We're not there quite yet, though. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into the Clemson Tigers schedule predictions as I kick off the ACC. So some quick thoughts on the Clemson program as a whole right now. They're in a very unique and interesting spot right now, in my opinion, where they have some sort of rare turmoil for them as a team that has really dominated the ACC in recent years. And honestly, they're still clearly the most talented team in the conference, but their grasp seems to be slipping just a little bit. And if you add in some changes at both the coordinator spots, there's a little bit of a quarterback controversy going on right now, and things get really interesting here. I think Dabo is going to keep the ship sailing in the right direction, though, because, say what you want about him, he is one of the best head coaches in the country at this point. He has one of the most talented teams in the country as well to boot. So, it's gonna be good for Clemson. I don't think that they're quite what they used to be, but for people who think they're gonna, lose 5 games, I think that that's a little outlandish too, in my opinion. Now, the issues that they're gonna need to have addressed are the quarterback position, the offensive line, and the wide receiver positions, all of which struggled mightily last season. Their wide receivers struggled tremendously to create separation on routes and get open, which was then compounded by the fact that their offensive line was terrible. Honestly, they could not block to save their lives, especially in pass pro, which then really compounded on the fact that DJU just had a bad year, and he didn't have a lot of protection, and he didn't have a lot of separation from receivers to help him. And so all of that really sort of spiraled into a bad offense for them. Their offense struggled mightily last season. Now they have some bright spots in it, like Will Shipley, but again, when your passing game is completely stagnant and your offensive line isn't very good, you're going to have a tough time running the ball, even with really good running backs. So whether it's DJU or Cade Klubnik, the offense, and the quarterback position in particular, will really help to determine this team's ceiling this year, because the defense is most likely going to be elite once again. They're absolutely loaded with elite talent, a lot of NFL guys on that defense. The offense is really going to determine how far Clemson can go this year. So let's go ahead and just look at some games that aren't really worth talking about, because the opponents just don't have a chance of winning, barring some sort of catastrophe. And those games are Furman and Louisiana Tech. Those teams just aren't in the same class as Clemson. There's no point in really discussing those games. So let's start off week 1 with at Georgia Tech. Now, this game is surprisingly interesting to me. Clemson is noticeably better than Georgia Tech. They really are. But it's week 1. They have 2 new coordinators in-house, 2 new play callers as well there. And then you have the quarterback thing where it's probably going to be DJU to start the season, but how long or short of a leash does he have? Is he given full reign? How good has Cade Klubnik looked? A lot of controversy question there, how they're going to work that out. It's your first game. There's a lot of jitters there. You're on the road. It's not a very tough road environment by any means, but you're still on the road, and this is an improved Georgia Tech team. They're not a great Georgia Tech team, but they're improved. They're a decent team. They're good enough to where if things go really bad for Clemson and really well for them, they could pull off an upset here. It's a night game. It's going to be on ESPN. I'm excited to see it. I think Clemson's going to get a win here, probably by 2 scores or more, but I think it's going to be closer than people think, especially in that first half. I think you're going to see some struggles, and it'll be interesting to see how the Clemson offense in particular navigates this game. I think it'll be a really good tone setter for the rest of the season. And now the next game we're going to talk about is in week 4 at Wake Forest, and this one is a very, very tough ask for Clemson, in my opinion. At Wake Forest is not an easy place to play. It's not, by far, it's not the hardest place to play, but it's not an easy place to play. And I think Wake is one of the most underrated teams in the country next year. I think they are a very good team. I think their offense is elite. Their defense has a lot of questions on it, but their offense is elite, and if they can get some points up on Clemson, I don't know if Clemson can answer them with their offense, even against a weaker defense. And so on the road here, I think Wake gets a big upset early in the season. Now, this is a game Clemson will probably be favored in. They probably should be. I think this is an upset, but it is also a very close game either way. I don't think either team blows the other out here, but I could see Clemson struggling a lot with Wake Forest in this one. I think Wake Forest gets a surprise win here. Next game is in week 5, and then Clemson is back home, this time playing NC State. And NC State is a very good team. NC State is not as good as Wake, in my opinion, but they are a very good team. They're a very physical team, and they're going to be in Super Bowl mode. Everybody in this conference is going to be in Super Bowl mode when they play Clemson. It is what it is. It's the nature of the beast when you've been the team in the conference for so long now. But I think being back home, I think Clemson is still noticeably more talented than NC State. I think it helps them out a lot. I think that Wake Forest game will kind of help to refocus them. And I think Clemson comes out with a good win here. Very close game. Going to go down to the wire, I think. A game that NC State could very well end up with another upset in, and if that happens, then you can start to see the wheels come off for Clemson a little bit. But I do think that they're gonna hold true. They're gonna get a win here. Tough, hard-fought win. I think it may be a galvanizing moment for the team, and I think they really start to help right the ship a little bit in the NC State game. Next game up is at Boston College. Not an easy road trip, but also not a very difficult one either. They are a noticeably better team than Boston College. Not a game that you can take for granted. Boston College is going to fight you tooth and nail, but Clemson is just noticeably better than them. They should win this game going away. Even if they struggle, they should win by 2 scores or more. I think they end up getting a win here. But a game that could be interesting, especially if they did lose to Wake and NC State, that game could really be interesting then. I don't see that happening, though, and so I think they end up beating Boston College pretty handedly. Next game up is at Florida State, and another intriguing road trip for this one. Florida State is better than Boston College. I don't think they're as good as NC State or Wake, though. Clemson is much better than them. And again, a road trip that is not easy, but I don't think it's incredibly difficult either. I don't think Florida State is rolling as a program to the level where you would have like a rocking home environment here. It's going to be an interesting game regardless, though. I think Florida State is good enough to make this one kind of interesting. I don't think they're good enough to win it. I think Clemson comes out on top here, but another one that could be kind of interesting, especially if the season starts to go bad. But again, I don't see it happening. I think Clemson gets a solid win. Next game up is Syracuse at home for Clemson. Clemson is better than Syracuse across the board. Clemson's at home here. They're about to head into a bye week. I think they finish off strong. Could be a potential letdown kind of game heading into a bye week after a rough stretch. Maybe they overlook them. I don't see it happening. I think Clemson gets a pretty solid, win against Syracuse in a game where they might win by 3-4 scores. And then they go at Notre Dame, and they're coming off of a bye for it, so that does help, but it's still at Notre Dame. And I think Notre Dame is basically equal to Clemson at this point as a team. Clemson is more talented a little bit, but not by much. And I think with Clemson's offensive struggles, Notre Dame is definitely an even match for them. I think it is a very, very interesting game. Could really go either way. One that's going to be very close. It's a night game. It's at Notre Dame. I'm going to say Notre Dame gets a win here. I don't know if it's an upset necessarily. I would say that Clemson's probably favored here, but I think Notre Dame does get the win. I think most of that is because they're at home. I like the momentum of their program a little bit better than Clemson's right now. But a game that could go either way, should be very, very, very hotly competitive, and a very hard-fought, close game. Goes down to the wire, but I do think Notre Dame comes out on top here. And then you have Louisville, and this is one that's intriguing to me because Louisville is a team that I'm pretty high on. They have a good offense. I don't think they're good enough to beat Clemson, especially because it's in Clemson. But one that, maybe watch out for, maybe be on a little bit of upset alert. Not really, but, Louisville could give them a little bit of a run. Should be something that'll be interesting to track there. I still have Clemson getting a win there, though. And then Miami, also in Clemson. This one is very interesting to me because Miami is a program right now that has things rolling quickly in the right direction. Their recruiting is rolling. Mario Cristobal has that thing going down there. Their coaching staff is outstanding down there. And they have a very good quarterback in Tyler Van Dyke. I don't think Miami is ready to beat Clemson on the road just yet. I don't think they can get the win here. But maybe, definitely not an easy game. One that Clemson really needs to show up for. And one that could help determine, the next couple of years. Could be a nice insight into a very, very interesting matchup for the next few years to keep an eye on. I think Clemson gets the win here, but definitely a close, hard-fought game. And then they end the season with their in-state rival, South Carolina. Now, they get them at home this year. I do think South Carolina is going to be much improved from last year. Their quarterback situation alone is going to dramatically improve them. I don't think they're good enough to beat Clemson on the road. They're definitely good enough to scare Clemson on the road, though. face some adversity, and depending on how the season's going at this point, maybe you could see South Carolina push for an upset here. Definitely not a game you can take lightly. Not that they would. This game is always incredibly hard fought. It's a very intense in-state rivalry. One of my favorite rivalry games to watch every year. But I do think Clemson gets the win there. Not an easy win, though. Keep an eye on that one at the end of the year, especially if Clemson's been struggling. And so for all that negative talk, that does still make Clemson 10-2, which is, a great season for most anybody. It seems fair to me. I just don't see their offense being at the same level as it was when they were really steamrolling the conference with Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson. And other teams in the conference are also much improved at this point, in my opinion. I mean, they could definitely win the games against Wake Forest and Notre Dame. They're definitely good enough to. But there's also a bunch of other losable games on there, like Miami, NC State, even games like Florida State or Louisville, not to mention South Carolina at the end of the year. All of those games are kind of losable. They're going to be closer than they have been in years past, in my opinion. And out of all of those tough games, I think Clemson drops 2 of them. And I think the 2 that I picked, probably the 2 best teams of the group, they're also both on the road. I think that's fair. I think it's a fair thing to expect losses there. 10-2 isn't quite what that fan base has gotten used to recently, but when you consider a little bit of turmoil at the quarterback spot where you don't know who's going to play, and regardless, you don't know how good it's going to be, plus the loss of both coordinators from last year, I think Clemson fans should be satisfied with a 10-2 type of regular season, all things considered. A lot of drama and stuff going around the program right now. I think 10-2 is an admirable season for them, especially because the schedule is pretty dang tough too. Anyway, though, that'll do it for this one. Let me know down below in the comment section where you agree and or disagree with me on the Clemson schedule in 2022. Tell me what record you think they're going to have next year and who, if anybody, they're going to lose to. Also, if you made it this far in the video, be sure to go ahead and leave a like because it does help out the channel tremendously. And subscribe to the channel for more college football content in the future. Like I said, I'm going to do a video on every Power 5 team. I'm starting right now with the ACC. I've already done the SEC. So, be on the lookout for more content. Check out some of the other stuff. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.